I've launched a new and amazing community, which is a membership called the Emotional Freedom Collective, which is a loving, supportive community. But this is a community where you get a lot of love, support, and learning within the space of just having a membership for to get live sessions. You get 2 live sessions a month. You get to do Q&As with me. You get an amazing reflection journal that's been created by my whole team. And you get a lot of community support in our Facebook groups and the other groups that we have. You can join now for just $1 because that's a special offer right now. I would love to see you guys in there. Change, especially from a place of trauma, especially from a place of feeling victimized, from saying that I am damaged, I am this, and this is all I am. Change from that can be so difficult. And that's why sometimes we will sabotage our lives just so we can stay within the shell of what we see and believe of ourselves. So, you know, that's it. It was just something marvelous for me to see, but also to recognize how much the fear of change can really handicap us, right?
Yeah.
And how do you see that? Like, you know, in the work that you do, what do you think about, you know, that aspect?
Yeah, it's what I was talking about earlier, feeling safe as you expand. Because when you are in that you just talked about, I'm not safe to be myself, I'm not safe to change. Because it's safe when I change, essentially. And I know this, so it's safe, even if it's painful. So it's the desire to change and the willingness to change. Ready is a lie. You'll never be ready. You got to make a decision. Then you decide to let it go. And in that process of expanding into the new you, regulating your nervous system and learning how to do that will help you integrate much more. Because you've got, you know, like, okay, I'm done with this pattern. I'm not going to do it anymore. And then you go out there for a few weeks, you're great. And then you go right back to maybe a little bit worse than it was before.
Right.
The identity shift wasn't integrated. It was all willpower, and willpower doesn't last. So that's how I look at what you were describing is being safe to be somebody else and knowing, and the biggest thing from the mindset perspective is that I'm not going to lose love. I'm not going to lose love if I be somebody else. Because that's our fear, is that we're not enough, and if we're not enough, we're not going to be loved.
Right.
So if we can say, well, I could be equally as loved, maybe more loved, if I was somebody else. We give our don't even sit at that as a belief. I just want you to open up to the realm, the possibility that could actually happen. Like play with, maybe, or if I was this person, would I lose love? Like look at it almost like you're brainstorming and mapping something out. Don't do it as like a do or die type of situation. And that start to explore what's possible there. And when you do that, you open your mind to it. You're actually able to grasp and go, okay, it's safe to be somebody else. I'm not going to lose love.
Right. And I think that's the baseline in a weird way of our entire existence sometimes, right? Is the concept of love, the love of oneself, the most important, because whether people are around or not, we always have the self to be with. The body is so important when it comes to this aspect of like recognizing oneself, because it is the only physical piece that we can take with us every moment that we are alive. And people don't actually get that, is that, you know, and that's why we're trying to accumulate so many things and take so many things. The only thing you can actually take to your grave, the only thing you can take in every moment of your existence is your body. And that's why there's so much messaging that comes through our body. There's so much that our body is telling us. There's so much that our body is trying to teach us about what we're feeling. Like that feeling of anxiety when we're approaching, you know, approaching a challenge or approaching a goal, approaching success, approaching love. That feeling of anxiety is telling us that it needs to be heard. Not that it needs to be run away from, but that it needs to be heard and saying, what is it telling me? Am I afraid? Okay, what am I afraid of? What am I feeling that I'm afraid of? I'm afraid that, okay, if I achieve this, I'll be seen so differently. I'm afraid that actually if I choose this, maybe I'll be kicked out of my family. I'm afraid that if I really go after this, maybe people won't see me the way I am before. And all of that is associated with that lack of love, because I think the problem in our conditioning is that love has been attached so strongly to the external. And the concept of love being attached or even inspired or created from the internal has been, you know, whether it's through societal conditioning or familial conditioning, religious conditioning, you know, all of it is kind of suppressed and lost. So, you know, one thing that I want to ask you is, in that concept of self-sabotage, how can someone feel safer within themselves, Kevin, so that in those moments when they come up against, especially anxiety, so, you know, doubt, anxiety, before they've approached the, you know, the challenge on the way there, how can they create some safety within their body and how they feel?
Two things, two ways I like to do this. Number one, do it so fast you don't have time to think. You know,
it's like the Brené Brown method, I think, right?
Body's like, oh, that wasn't bad. Whoa, okay, I could do that again. Because sometimes we just hype ourselves up in our head and we're overthinking. So there's only so much inner work to do. Sometimes you do have to move matter. We're in the third dimension. So take the action, right? If that's not available to you, then it's dropping into the body and playing with your awareness, essentially. So you know you need to have a difficult conversation, and it's coming, and you're getting super anxious, and it's like overwhelming on your body, where you're losing a sense of center, you're losing presence. Just breathe is the last thing you want to hear. Not what I'm telling you to do. So hey, there we go. What I like to do, because we're so in those moments, our mind is so loud and running so fast that we try to like use our mind to change our mind. Adds fuel to the fire. I like to, in those moments, remind myself to put the story aside for a second and almost go into the realm of without words. If you were an alien that didn't know language, dropped into this body, what will be going on? So you kind of have to treat this like a toolbox. One day, one thing will work. The next day, the other, that won't work, and another thing will. So you got two options with this. You go internal with your awareness. So for everybody listening, if you're driving, don't do this. But for everybody else, close your eyes quick and drop in for a second. Just close your eyes and notice what sensations are inside of your body. Not emotions, but sensations. So for me, seeing my right leg is a little bit asleep. I just moved it. A warmth in my hands, a tension in my back. Noticing ease of breath right now. Pressure of the chair on my butt. I can feel my face, almost like the blood in my face. It's really weird. And you just notice what's inside of your body. Now, if you're too overwhelmed, that's just going to amplify it and have the adverse effect. That can be very grounding to just tap inward for a second and what's happening inside, without judgment, without trying to change anything, just what's here. If that's not accessible, or that one just like, nope, you go external. That will shift your awareness outside of yourself for a second. So you drop the mind story. Same thing with the internal. You drop the head stuff. You ground. That's a very quick way to ground yourself without trying to just breathe. And you'll then from that, you're grounded, reapproach it from if you want to share with the head, it is, I'm not going to lose love. Even if this person leaves my life, I'm not going to lose love.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kevin. That was actually, you know, I think it's so important for everybody to learn ways to just really ground themselves. You know, I think we're so preoccupied by the hyper awareness that we think we need to have to everything that, again, our awareness now becomes attached to everything around us and is lost from within. And these simple exercises, I think, are so important in bringing us back to our reality, bringing us back to our moment. Particularly around self-sabotage, I think if we're talking now about like what are some ways that I can deal with, you know, the self-sabotage coming up in the moment, I think one of the biggest things is compassion. Wouldn't you agree? Like compassion of just recognizing, okay, you know, I think people ignore the power of awareness. They ignore the power of knowing what I'm feeling right now, because most of us don't really pay attention to what we're feeling, which is why we just get carried away and our emotional freedom is lost. It's attached to like the circumstance. But when we create awareness to what am I feeling, just as you were saying, what is within my body, what am I feeling, where is this coming from? Cutting off that train of thought of like, you know, going down the rabbit whole by adding compassion to the mix.
Mhm.
And by saying, you know, you were hurt in your childhood.
Mhm.
It was difficult for you. People didn't just accept you the way you are, they made you do something or be someone to accept you. That's heavy. That's painful. And I see you where you are, just as you were saying. But to add compassion, to say, but now you have the chance to accept and create that identity, as you brought up before, for yourself.